My colleagues, Shri Suresh Prabhu, Shri Prakash Javadekar, Shri Piyush Goyal, Dr. Panagriya, honorable dignitaries on the dais, and ladies and gentlemen. Unlike my other colleagues, I think it's a great disadvantage to be invited to speak in a valedictory session after 3 days. It's still a greater disadvantage to be the last speaker. Because a lot of what you wanted to say has already been said several times over, and then you find that there is nothing new to say. And I must confess that I have another disadvantage, because Mr. Piyush Goyal has, with his persuasive skills, persuaded me to be present here and break the golden rule that in the run-up to the budget, the finance ministers don't speak. Because the disadvantage in speaking is that there are some friends from the media who are here and they'll appreciate my problem more than you. That irrespective of what I say, their report will be linked to something else. Because when I read reports these days of what I have spoken, which has very little nexus to what I have actually said, I am reminded these days the World Cup cricket is on. So you'll all recollect there was a Pakistan captain not very long ago. So when the man of the match presentation was to be done, irrespective of the question, his answer was always the same. So the reports of what I have said on some occasions broadly remind me of the plight at that time. So I am going to refrain from saying much, except to mention that there is a huge change of mood and attitude in India. And that is really reflective of the large-scale enthusiasm that we see in this conference. For people to stay on till 3 days, explore a relatively uncharted area, and then participate with all the attendant consequences and try and explore that area. Now, this is an impact of a large number of political and economic changes which are taking place in the country. It's not that the crowd here is large in number and a lot of promises in terms of commitments have been made today. On the same way, in different fields, I find the kind of enthusiasm that international investors are also reposing in India. And I've always believed that in today's environment, such occasions come very rarely in history, where you can become a natural recipient of both domestic and international investment. The United States, of course, is doing extremely well, but then the world can't be run only on one engine. Other competing economies are facing a great challenge. Europe itself is facing a challenge. Our friends in the BRICS are facing a challenge. China has now changed its strategy And we've now been looking at a different normal as far as Chinese growth is concerned. It's also shifting its emphasis more on consumption, more on the services sector. And therefore, there is a great opportunity for India to grow in terms of our manufacturing. Not only grow in terms of our manufacturing, we also have to concentrate on our infrastructure. And therefore, we have to look at resources both within the country and outside the country, which are going to help in this whole process. The starting point of all this has to be the credibility of Indian economy, the faith of people in Indian economy, and our ability to provide opportunities to investors. And it's from that point of view that our own systems have to tune themselves accordingly. And for each one of these, power is essential. Your energy goes to the root of where the country can tomorrow go. And our situation with regard to our energy sector had been in the past very challenging. My colleague Mr. Suresh Prabhu in 2003 had ushered the first round of power sector reforms through the then electricity bill, which became an act of parliament. But then somewhere on track we faltered in terms of providing raw material for our growth in the power sector. We faltered. History has provided us with a second opportunity. And the second opportunity is that in terms of conventional thermal power, we have the resource in this country. And the professional manner in which in the last 8 months, our colleague Shri Piyush Goyal has been going about the coal policy. I think we have had in the last 4 days extremely encouraging results. You are promised with a roadmap where electricity could be cheaper, a process of reverse bidding in an auction, producing such exemplary results, and therefore its reach to the common man and the poor man on basis of a sustainable policy, that he gets electricity cheaper. One way which people want to provide cheaper electricity by the state subsidizing it. A state subsidy really means that you'll have to tax people more in order to provide something freer to some other people. Is that a sustainable cause? Or is the process which has been followed now of a reverse bidding where your cost of power is going to be linked with the rate at which you get the fuel for that power? It's a far more sustainable and a durable policy, much larger in the interest of this country, that the coal ministry has now pursued. Now, to supplement that, we have the challenge there, because that's not considered to be clean energy. And the world today is increasingly moving towards a cleaner energy. We may well say in our climate talks dialogue that whatever adverse impact has been created on the climate is really on account of the developed world, because they've grown more, they've polluted more. We still are at a very initial level in our growth. But independent of what our international dialogue and our positioning is going to be, we also owe a responsibility to the environment as to what kind of environment we are going to leave behind in terms of an intergenerational equity for the next generation. And that is where the relevance of renewable energy comes in. It's a great resource provided by nature, both for solar and for wind. India has a very large landmass, and therefore the raw material required for it is already right in front of us. It would be sheer incompetence if we are not able to convert this into a resource. And therefore, the initiative that the Prime Minister has taken to multiply the quantum of production as far as renewable energy is concerned, and therefore create an economically competitive environment in order to nudge the process of this sector taking off. And this conference really is the take-off conference. And once we are able to succeed in this area, the consequences really on the economy itself, job generation, entrepreneurship, investment resulting in profitability, competitiveness between various sectors, filling up the gap that we have in terms of power supply, enhancement to the manufacturing sector, and yet not hurting the environment. And thereafter, our colleague, the Environment Minister, Mr. Prakash Javadekar, can go to Paris with it held high and say that here is a country which has taken such long advances in manufacturing cleaner energy. So this conference, therefore, is a starting point of a great initiative, and I'll compliment Shri Piyush Goyal and his entire team of consultants, civil servants, colleagues, and I would compliment all of you for having displayed such exemplary enthusiasm as far as this sector is concerned. I have not the least doubt that in the years to come, the best in this sector is going to be very clearly visible to us. And thank you very much for having shown such an enthusiastic response to this conference.